Screen Time Stories is presented by Pinwheel. With Pinwheel, you get to set limits on your child's smartphone to match their maturity level. As your child grows, you can open up more features to guide their independence. There are many options that come with a Pinwheel smartphone, like allowing approved contacts only, remotely monitoring messages, selecting expert-vetted apps based on professional guidance, and scheduling modes to keep your kids living in the moment. Connect authentically with a Pinwheel smartphone for kids and teens. For a 10% discount, use code PODCAST10 at checkout.
Hello, and welcome to Season 3 of Screen Time Stories. I'm Julie. I'm a mom of a 9-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son, and I'm pretty much just taking this journey and bringing all of you down the rabbit holes with me because I am really overwhelmed with parenting and tech, and I just wanted to allow everybody else the opportunity to learn alongside me. So hopefully y'all have gotten a good taste of what it means to parent with technology so far. And I have some really awesome guests coming up for Season 3. I'm super excited. I have researchers. I'm talking a lot about attachment theory, which is not new, but it's something that's surfacing recently. And one of my guests has a really cool opinion as to why that is. It is related to technology. I'm talking about babies and technology. I'm talking about social media. I'm talking about, I'm actually talking to teenagers and getting their real world perspective on what their life looks like today, just so that we can have a better understanding of what our kids are experiencing every day. So yeah, my goal continues to be just combining scientific research and data with a ton of compassion, because if we're not compassionate to ourselves and to each other, then we're not doing very well as humans, in my opinion. So anyways, my guest today is Shelley Delayne, who is just an amazing human being. She works as chief mom for the software company Pinwheel, which designs smartphone software for kids and teens. It supports their well-being. She does a lot of research and manages a lot of the driving decisions that create this final product that our kids end up using. So she's super cool and she has a lot of great insight. The reason that I want to talk to her today is because I am always so hyper-focused on parenting with technology, and I think it's great. It's very important because this isn't something that we grew up with. The issue is that I don't want y'all thinking that this is a separate puzzle. It is just a piece of the puzzle when it comes to parenting. So what I mean by that is we can't treat our kids' digital lives like it's an island. Their experience with technology, it's very much a part of their little worlds. And so we need to really try to understand how infused it is in their everyday lives. And as we parent, we don't want to treat it separately. So I have this podcast that looks at technology as a separate entity because this isn't something that is innate to us. We didn't see it. We don't have the role modeling for it. We're learning this from scratch. But just keep in mind, like if you go through the past seasons or as you dive into the upcoming episodes, just keep in mind that I'm trying to give you research on this very important topic, but we really want to look at it holistically as we parent. My cat just jumped up in my chair and we're in a fight right now. He's already bitten me twice this week, even though I buy him prescription food and give him all the love. I think he's a bad apple. So, anyways, I am so excited to have Shelley with me today. Um, and Shelley has a super cool analogy for us to help us understand how to parent our kids holistically, tech included.
I'm excited to be here. I'm really excited for another season of this podcast because spending all day every day with Pinwheel and working on product direction and reading about the research and learning about all the things that are going on with kids and technology, it's so exciting to hear like from the experts, and you talk to them in such depth. I'm just excited that I get to be part of the podcast season and
Yay.
nerd out with you a little bit.
Yes, me too. So you have one kiddo. Cutest thing ever.
I have a 10-year-old kiddo, soon to be 11, going on 25, like they all are.
Yeah.
Single mom, Austin, Texas, and trying very much to break generational cycles. So I think a lot about my own parenting, and my research helps with that too.
Yeah. And I love the concept of breaking generational cycles, but like I think that also adding in this element of technology, it's not something that we can even break because we didn't have it in our own childhood. And so it's almost like breaking whatever.
There is and that's a really good call out. There's so much that comes along with technology that requires something different of parenting today, even for people who had great parents.
Yeah.
There's just more variables. They hit kids younger and faster, and there's more that's outside of a parent's locus of control. So there's a lot of consciousness required by today's parenting that our parents did not have to worry about.
Okay, well, this is what I wanted to talk to you about because I've been hyper-focused on working with my kids' technology consumption and interaction. And I think it's because I am not a digital native like they are, where we have these two very different perspectives. And so I've been starting to feel like I've been too hyper-focused on their tech consumption and tech interaction, but it's very important that I take a step back and see that it's a part of their everyday life. It's just part of their world. And so the way I'm parenting, I can feel myself looking at tech use as like a separate puzzle, but really it's just one piece of the puzzle. And so I still think it's great to look at all of the data and research surrounding kids and technology, because this is new. We need to know what we're up against. And I have this entire podcast talking about kids and tech. I just want to make it really clear that it's like one little piece.
Yeah, and two things. One, I love that you're aware of that. And two, the research does support that for kids, their digital life and their in-person physical life is seamless. It's all for them, part of a continual experience. But for those of us who aren't digital natives, who didn't grow up having it from birth, it does feel like a separate thing. And it's something that I've been keenly aware of lately, both for myself and in observing in other parents, that it can be really easy to focus on just their physical life and limit the time on their device, but then otherwise just whatever, I can't deal, and ignore their virtual life, or get really focused on the specifics of the tech and then realize you've sort of let go of the physical side of life a little bit because you've been so focused on energy-wise on what's happening on their devices. It's really challenging as a parent to maintain the balance between those.
Yeah.
But because kids do see it as a continuum and it's all part of their experience, it is important to balance and parent them consistently across both, for sure.
I feel like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the first step here might just be that empathy and collaboration, really understanding our kids every day. Like, I don't think that we can take that next step of being like, I'm going to parent holistically with all the technology and everything, unless we really understand where they're coming from. Like, what does that look like to like get into our kiddos' lives, the whole thing?
Yeah, especially when you like get in the car, you pick them up from school, you get in the car, and you're like, "How was your day?" And they're like, "Fine."
Yeah.
What'd you do today? I don't know. How was art class? Oh, it's fine.
It's been 7 hours. You didn't do anything?
And like, I don't think there's a parent alive who hasn't been in that situation where you're sitting there like, "Come on, throw me a bone here, kid. Anything." And I will tell you, I know that not everybody is as much of a bookworm as I am, but I always recommend the books How to Talk So That Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And especially for people who have older kids, How to Talk So Teens Will Listen and How to Listen So Teens Will Talk, because they're both such good hands-on practical books with like scripted examples of like how to have those conversations and how even subtle changes of phrase can get such a different response from children.
Yeah.
Like the more you can actually discuss their day with them, the more you can actually connect with them on a daily basis, the better the problem solving conversations will go. So like first and foremost, like a baseline of we talk about things. It's really helpful. And that's why the How to Talk books, I think, are so helpful. But then, in addition to that, when you have a kid who's encountered a challenge in something, or they have done something that made you angry, or they didn't meet your expectation on something, they didn't do their homework, they lied about something, they whatever happened, they exploded and threw something at the wall, they didn't want to get off their iPad, whatever the problem, whenever there's a problem to solve, I personally have become a huge fan of the methods outlined by Dr. Ross Greene in Raising Human Beings. It's also in The Explosive Child and a couple of other books of theirs. I've got so many resources on the Lives in the Balance website.
Yeah, and I actually have an episode with one of his colleagues, Kim Hopkins, coming up. So she'll talk about, it's called the CPS model, the collaborative and
proactive solutions.
Yeah,
Yes.
so she'll tell us all about that in and connect it to some specific things. So
I love it.
Coming up later.
When people listen to that episode, they'll get this in spades.
Okay, awesome.
But a couple of the nuggets from it that are just like bedrock are, one, always coming from the belief, like hanging on for dear life to the belief that kids do well when they can. And whether it's in their digital life or their physical life, if something has gone wrong, to come first from the assumption that they didn't want to get in trouble. Mm-hmm. They weren't trying to cause a problem. Something got in their way of doing well.
Yeah.
And that if you want to get into it and have it not happen again, your first best source of information about it is them. So before you lecture, before you berate them, before you have a consequence or a punishment or anything else, the first thing you want to do, articulate for yourself what was the problem, mm-hmm. what happened, and then find out from them what happened. What got in your way? What was difficult about this? Like, why did you make that choice?
Yeah.
And sometimes they just didn't have the skill needed to make a better choice. Sometimes they weren't clear what the expectation was. Sometimes something else happened. Like and the reasons will surprise you is one of my favorite things about it. Is like sometimes you think you know.
Yeah.
You think you know. Like you had trouble getting up this morning because you stayed up late last night, or you didn't do your homework because you wanted to play more Roblox, or like you think you know. But when you start asking and having those conversations and really being open to their understanding and their perspective of what happened, oh my gosh, it really, it's mind-blowing just how often you don't know what was in your kid's way. Like,
Yeah.
I know once mine got completely distracted from doing like some chores around the house because there was an itchy tag in a shirt situation. And like it led down this whole rabbit hole of like then looking for scissors to cut
Yeah.
out the tag, but then needing to put on a different shirt so they weren't walking around the house without a shirt on. And then like, so in my mind, I'm seeing child walking around the house aimlessly, not doing the things that were supposed to be done.
Yeah.
But from their perspective, they were still doing it. They just had something else that needed to be taken care of first because it was. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't asked. And it's a silly example, but it was just one of those that was so surprising to me. Like nope, would not have guessed that just from watching. Nope.
Yeah. And so, but you showed collaboration by asking about why are you not doing this chore right now? And then you discovered that there was an itchy tag and it led down this whole rabbit hole. And I think the same conversation can happen with technology. But then, like I was saying, I don't want it to be hyper focused on technology like I've been doing. It's just part of the bigger picture, right? We ask about how they ended up watching YouTube for the last hour instead of doing laundry.
And one of the things, so drilling and getting into their perspective when it comes to technology, also for me, is illuminating in two ways. One, it really helped me at the beginning to understand, like, when it comes to setting a time limit and expecting, like, you will get off of this in time to get ready for bed at a decent hour or whatever, like, whatever expectation I have around it. And that's one for me, because for me, sleep is sacred. So I'm like, I protect bedtime.
For sure.
But I noticed that some nights the wrap up would happen exactly when the timer went off, and some nights it wouldn't. And so getting into and learning about, some activities are more easy to just turn off. And some activities you have to get to a certain point or you'll lose all the progress you've made.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not wrap up is easy depended on what was being done. And so like sometimes the perspective taking helps for that. But then also one of the things it's made me even more aware of is how manipulative certain online mechanisms can be and how kids are not aware of why. Like when they end up binge watching 3 hours worth of YouTube videos, they're not always conscious of the fact that it's because it was auto playing videos for them and it was recommending things that were interesting enough to them that they literally, it didn't occur to them to stop.
Yeah.
And they were so focused on it, they were unaware of the passage of time. Sometimes they can't articulate that when it's a manipulative online environment. So that's a good thing but you get that from the conversations when they're like, I don't know. I didn't realize what time it was. Like, I thought I watched like 2 videos and it was like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can point to it and be like, you watched 20 videos and it's been an hour.
Yeah. And so you've got to like just understand where they're coming from. Yeah.
And when you can recognize, and the other thing that comes from having those conversations frequently is you stay tuned into your kids' tell for when they're being authentic and when they're maybe not.
Yeah.
And that's important too, because especially when it comes to like stuff that they can't articulate really well, it's helpful if you're attuned to, like, do they legit lose track of time and not have any idea how long they were on this thing? Or how long they've been looking for the scissors to cut out the itchy tag? Like, did they really lose track of time? Or do they just not want to admit to having gone down a rabbit hole?
What?
And you can tell.
Yeah, because you have developed that relationship with your kid where you're starting to understand them on the next level. So I'm wondering, when it comes to maybe just incorporating our parenting with tech a little bit better. Do you have any advice for how we can, or maybe any analogies for how we can do that? Just kind of looking at this as looking at our kid as a whole. We're feeling empathetic, we're collaborating on all the things, not just technology, but all the things. Like what advice do you have?
Yeah, the most helpful hack I've got for that's been helpful for me and for everybody I've shared it with, just because for those of us who grew up a little more analog, it helps to keep your brain in the right space when you don't think of their device as a device. You think about it as if it is a doorway to go outside into the world. So if they're opening up their device and they're going to a social media app, consider that they're leaving your front door and they're going to a party down the street.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Even though their body is in your house and it's on the couch and their body is safe, what happens for them experientially and in their brain and in their experience is exactly the same, which means that you want to know where they're going. You want to know who's going to be there. You want to know what they're going to see and do, and if there's any rules they need to follow while they're there. And then when they get back or get off of the device, you want to check in with them and see how they're doing, and if they ran into anything weird, and all of those things. And so for me, it helps keep continuity across the physical realm and the digital realm, where I treat the device as if it's just another portal into the world.
Yeah.
And I'm mindful of it in the exact same way I am if my kid is going over to a friend's house or going to explore the neighborhood or going to an activity. Like, same thing.
Yeah.
And the same rules apply and the same expectations apply. So.
Okay. So I want to take a little trip down imagination lane, because that's just a fun way to it's just a fun way to try to relate to our kids. I love this concept of portals and doorways, and thinking about my little nephew who is a toddler, and his parents locked the toilet. And so you can think of the toilet as being his tiny person's version of a doorway to a dangerous situation. I think about what I have inside of the fridge and the pantry. I try to give my kids a really well-rounded diet with, a lot of healthy foods, but we've also got some really fun snacks in there that they can eat for dessert and, after they've had their veggies kind of deal. Think of the bedroom door. This is a great place to go when you need to take a moment. You need to rewind. I think of my kid's bedroom door as being a portal to a good night's rest, which I, 100% agree with you that this is so important to our kids' overall well-being, their emotional and mental and physical health. Sleep is so important, and so we give them that doorway. Okay, and now think about the back door. When your kids were younger, or if you have younger kiddos, the backyard can actually be a pretty dangerous place. If you have a kiddie pool, there's bumblebees back there. Kids might fall off of a playground. But these things are all actually very wonderful as well. So there's this balance in the maturity level that your kid has to have before they can really enjoy themselves in the backyard. And then you think of the front door as being, the same thing as the backyard, except you go beyond the front yard and suddenly you have the dangers of the street. You have the wonders of the outside world. You can go to all of these amazing places like school and museums. Your kids can go play at a friend's house. They can go to an ice cream shop. They can go to a party. And it's all of this really wonderful stuff as long as they can handle it, as long as they have the maturity to take on these new experiences. And, you know, that looks different for every kid, but let's say you allow your child to go to an ice cream shop without you. You feel like they're, you know, they're old enough, their friends are going without their parents, and you say, yeah, you can walk down to Main Street and meet everybody. Here's $5. And your kid goes, and it's one of those self-serve frozen yogurt places, and they sample every flavor 7 times. And then they leave their sample cups everywhere. And when they're pouring their ice cream, it's everywhere. It's a mess. They don't clean up after themselves. They put their toppings on, and it's also like just ridiculous. And when they get to the weigh station, it's like a $15 cup of ice cream, but all they have is $5. They haven't even sat down to eat yet, and this is like already not good stuff. Please don't let your kid go and harass the teenagers at the ice cream shop if they're behaving this way. They're not ready. The thing is, like, what a wholesome activity for a child to go do, and we're not even talking about anything serious like drugs and alcohol. This is ice cream. And your child was not ready to go and do it alone. So taking this doorway into the ice cream shop and replacing it with a doorway to something like TikTok, think about the responsibilities that your child will have to see in this platform. Think about the responsibilities that your child will have when they enter this platform. And if you don't know what those responsibilities are, you shouldn't let them have that app. Start by getting the app yourself and getting to know it. And, you know, of course, if it's something that you feel is age appropriate for them, then definitely create a profile and use it and connect with them and, you know, continue your engagement and relationship right there on that platform. So it feels abstract to parent with tech just because of, you know, not having all this social media and stuff when we were growing up. But just try to think of each platform as a different place for your child to spend time at, and, you know, stay engaged with them as much as possible, and just try to really know your child on that level where you can ask them and ask yourself, are they mature enough to handle the different aspects that they will face? And, you know, sometimes we think our kids are good to go, and we say, and they end up trashing the ice cream shop, and like, no shame, whatever. It's a learning experience for all of us, and we can say, oh, I see you were not ready to go out alone yet, and you help the teenagers at the ice cream shop clean up, and you tip them extra well. You know, what I'm trying to say is that if you think that your kid is ready for an app and you've discussed like what the dangers are and, you know, how to behave and all this stuff, and then they get on there and you check their activity and you're like, oh no, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. Treat it like the ice cream shop. It's okay that they made a mistake. It's okay that you thought they were ready. But, you know, you gotta keep parenting even when you realize that they've gone down a path that is not suitable for them.
One of the things that this makes me think of is once you said to me, and this, I think you might have even been quoting somebody else from another podcast.
Probably.
I don't remember where you got this, but it's stuck in my head, was the nugget that today we can absorb as much or be exposed to as much information in a single day as someone in the 1400s would have been exposed to in their entire life.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I think about with that is that when I was a kid, I can remember like going around our neighborhood and, playing outside, and we'd be exploring and all of this. And I remember once we found a nest with a baby bird in it. And we watched that nest for 3 hours to see if the mom would come back. All the kids in the neighborhood were worried about if this baby bird was going to starve to death, all of these things. We talked about that silly little bird for days, about this one little thing, because we were trying to make sense of it. We were processing how we felt about the peril to this tiny creature. We were processing our own feelings of compassion for it. There were so many things in the richness of just one little thing. And so one of the things that I've been aware of with my own kid is how when they're in a digital environment, especially a social media environment, there is so much information and experience that gets thrown at them so rapid fire, they cannot possibly examine it and turn it over and over again and understand their relationship to it. And if they were really doing that in a developmentally beneficial way, they might look at one Instagram post and talk about it for days. We looked at that one baby bird and talked about it for days. Kids' brains still move at Paleolithic speeds.
You know what else I'm thinking? I feel like as adults, we lose that sense of curiosity and wonder. And so it's something for us to keep a focus on, wanting our kids to have for as long as possible, if not forever. But I just feel like it's an easy thing for me to miss as a parent, because I've totally lost that sense of curiosity and wonder that I had when I was a kid. But I found that that quote you were talking about with the 1400s, it's actually research done by somebody named Quick in 2020, cited in Catherine Nibb's book. She's also a podcast guest.
She cites all the best research.
Yeah, we're now consuming as much information per day as a person in the 1400s would consume in a lifetime. And that is probably why I feel like I have ADHD and can't do a single thing without keeping a Google Calendar and 10 lists.
It's true. And one of the things to keep in mind about the way the brain works is that what happens is, one of the reasons that kids are so interested in everything is because none of it is yet encoded in their brain. They get excited about looking at the moon because, oh, the moon! And as adults, we're like, what is the same moon? And your brain, once it has imprinted on something multiple times, it creates these shortcuts. It creates heuristics and rules and shortcuts where the generality about something lives in your brain. And the only thing that is then interesting to you is what's different about it from the time before. So an eclipse is still interesting because the moon is different than it usually is. But even that, if you've seen 3 eclipses in your life, you're probably done. And you may not get up at 3 a.m. to see it again because your brain already knows and it expects what it's going to be. And one of the challenges with kids is that, one, if they are getting bombarded with lots of different information all the time, they don't get to create those shortcuts and those expectations of what their world is like. And so it can make it really hard for them to acquire deep knowledge and to focus on anything because they've got so much random scattered information.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough for adults, but we've got that baseline. We have certain expectations about how our world is and certain baseline understandings that kids don't yet have. And so when they're trying to form that, it would be if one night there was 1 moon, the next night there's 5 moons, the next night there's 2 moons, the next night there's a single crescent moon, and then the next night there's an eclipse, and then they would never develop an expectation of what the moon is like.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's really interesting. Well, you got anything else for us, Shelley?
I would want to encourage everybody to catch up on previous seasons of the podcast if they haven't listened to episodes yet, and to definitely listen to all of this season and to join us for our Facebook and Instagram lives and things like that. And there is a whole community of people that are trying to do parenting in this mindful way, and who recognize that you can't just ban technology from kids' lives. It's too everywhere. It's too much part of their future. And there is worth and value to protecting their childhood and to protecting their development time and to protecting their sleep and all of the things that will protect their mental well-being as much as possible. Like, protect your relationship with them, protect their sleep, focus on doing it in a mindful way, and know that there are other people approaching it that way. In mainstream culture, it can be really easy to feel like, I am the only parent who cares about this. All my kids' friends have unlimited access to everything.
Yeah, I think there's definitely value in coming together as a community with similar values. A lot of the people that I interact with in real life are okay with their really young kids being on TikTok, and they don't really know what their older kids are up to on Snapchat, and it just kind of goes against my way of thinking. But yeah, let's be rebels together. Rebels unite.
And as validation of that, there's a growing movement of college kids and young adults who are for themselves seeking out simple phones and things like that, and being a little anti-technology because they know the impact it had on them. They're growing up with unfettered access.
Yeah.
So we're not wrong.
That's awesome.
We're not wrong.
We're growing the movement, Shelley. Okay. Well, that was awesome.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
You're the best. I love.
But yeah, check out the Thriving Families Healthy Tech Facebook group. It's a community of about 1,500 people that are just non-judgmental, and we come together like we're in this same spot, this same tricky spot together, and just try to be supportive of each other and non-judgmental. Which is the last thing we all need right now. So anyway, I'm super stoked about this upcoming season. Feel free to pop into the community at any point and discuss what's resonating with you. I'd love to see what kinds of topics are hitting home, and feel free to recommend some stuff as well. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you taking the time to empower yourself as a parent. And just remember, it's okay to make mistakes. The target here is to be good enough. I'm serious, just good enough. That's based on scientific research. No lies. Okay, talk to y'all again next week.